Josh Giddy, not the player. I don't think he is going to be the player people make him out to be. And here's why. Hey guys, welcome to Secure the Bag. My name's Matt, and joining me on the first NBA OT is a regular special guest, Luke. In today's OT, we'll be discussing some of the most shocking transfers, what teams took a dub and what teams took an L in the free agency period, super teams, and finally provide a hot take for this upcoming season. So, as you can see, I'm a Celtics supporter. I just want to pass it over to Luke to tell us what team he supports as well before we get into some of the trades and free agency critiques.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, it's Luke again. Good to be on the podcast yet again for another sport. This is my third sport now, which is good. The NBA, and I am a basketball fan. Obviously, big basketball fan, not just NBA, but a bunch of other leagues and international as well. So, yes, I do have a Phoenix Suns jersey on, but I do like the jersey. But I actually am a Miami Heat fan. Have been for a long time, and as we'll go into later, I think we really nailed free agency for a number of reasons. In the free agency, so I'm keen to see how we go. But yeah, Heat fan, but massive basketball fan.
And we'll be going straight into the Miami Heat now as one of our winners for this free agency period. So we can have a look at some of their team's performance in the free agency. And in my opinion and Luke's opinion as well, we both believe that the Heat caught a dub this free agency period. I mean, re-signing players the likes of Jimmy Butler on the extension, Duncan Robinson re-signed. Who else? Victor Oladipo came back from free agency. I think he signed a 1 year, 2.5 veteran minimum. And you guys also got Kyle Lowry in a sign and trade. Is anyone else that I'm missing there, Luke?
No, that's basically it. But just on that, I think, first of all, re-signing Jimmy Buckets. I mean, it was only last season where he pretty much single-handedly carried Miami against the Lakers. I think it was game 5 by memory. He played every minute and he dropped about 40 and he guarded LeBron. And there's not too many people in the league that can guard LeBron for that length. And Jimmy's done that. And I think Duncan Robinson, I mean, the way the game's going, mate, as you know, the spacing the floor so important. So D-Rob was one of the biggest commodities in the free agency, and they locked him up for about 4 years at $90 million. So again, it's a good deal, long-term deal. I think it's what they're looking for. But again, I think the biggest one or two actually from the Heat, I think, are Oladipo on that veteran minimum contract. So I think Oladipo, yeah, he might have injury problems and he might have bounced around, but the guy was the second overall pick and he can play. If he gets any type of fitness that's anywhere near his Indiana and his Magic numbers, he can average 16 and 6 easily in the NBA. That'll put the Heat up to the next level. And another thing also about the Heat that I think people are underestimating is re-signing Dwayne Dedmon. I mean, he's only a fringe player, but he backs up Bam. He's averaging 13 minutes a game last year, but he averaged 7 points. And he was shooting over 70% from the field. So he's really productive. And he provides...
Yeah, that's exactly right.
As much as he's good, he's not really that inside player. He likes to play further out. So Dedmon come in, it helps them with the rebounding and the physical edge. And also I think PJ Tucker as well, because the Heat did lack a bit of corner shooting when Robinson wasn't on the court. So PJ provides that. So yeah. And then the big one, the Kyle Lowry one, my opinion, best free agent on the market. Shout out to Jimmy Butler because he really made that happen because they're good mates. And yeah, I think that Miami are a lot better. Yeah, they had to give up Dragic. They had to give up Precious, who I thought Precious had a really good rookie year. But overall, Miami definitely won and they had a great free agency and they're going to be better than they were last year.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I agree with you as well. I mean, that Duncan Robinson contract, big, like four years, 90 million, I believe. That's something unheard of for a guy that started his basketball career off in D3 college and worked his way up the ranks to Michigan and then into the G League, I believe it was. And then from there into the Miami Heat team. So yeah, he's performed really well and he was very well deserving of that contract. Kyle Lowry, like you mentioned before, good. We had to lose Goran Dragic, unfortunately, but Kyle Lowry, I think, provides that good replacement at point guard. You've got Victor Oladipo. If he gets back to those days where he was an all-star, the Indiana days, like you were saying before, your shooting guard's locked. Butler at small forward. Power forward, you can play Bam there. You've got your choice to play Bam there, and your center. I mean, you've got depth in your team at the moment, so that's a really good thing for the Miami Heat. And I can see them going far this season. But enough about the Miami Heat. Let's move on to another team out east, which have drastically improved their lineup, and that would be the Chicago Bulls. But before we get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to my guy KOT4Q, Kenny. If you guys know who he is, who've seen his videos, he's a big Bulls supporter, and he's very happy about the Bulls offseason. So I just want to give a shout out to him. Love your work. I've been watching you for ages. And let's get into our reaction to the Bulls free agency. So some big moves for the Bulls. Signed Lonzo Ball on the sign and trade. I made a big point guard addition to them. He's improved his shooting numbers each year on year. His 3-point shooting. He provides great defense in the point guard position or in the shooting guard position as well for the Bulls. So that's a really good defensive upgrade for them. And I think the most overlooked player in the league at the moment, Demar Derozan. I mean, a few years ago, All-Star, one of the best players in the league, and he's went to Spurs, and he's sort of people have sort of dropped off his radar. I mean, do you have any comments about that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I've been big on Demar for ages, even, in his Toronto days, USC days. As I remember telling Matt when he signed, Demar's a guy who you want on your team. He's a guy that he's pretty low maintenance, and he likes winning. So I think because Chicago are pretty young, I love the additional Lonzo. I think that really gives them, as you said, Matt, that edge on the defensive end. I think as well, getting rid of Lowry Markkanen is a big part of the Bulls' revival, because I think Vucevic and all the big guys as well, and the fact that they've got Carter, he's only going to get better, young guy. So I think they're really going to get better as a team. But the big thing on DeRozan, which goes back to the question, I think DeRozan's a guy that will help them win games. And Chicago's a team that haven't had a lot of success for a while. So I think bringing in those veteran guys that know how to win and know how to win big will really help Chicago going forward. And another big dub for them.
Yeah, so I agree as well. I mean, bringing in DeMar DeRozan, it's bringing in that little bit of experience that I think this team needs just to push them into that playoff contention. These Bulls, over the past couple of seasons, haven't been the best performers up to the standard that their franchise is known for. I mean, look at Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman back in the 90s. You look at they sort of built a legacy for this team, and in the last couple of years, it sort of dropped off a little bit. But it's good to see them starting to make some moves, bringing in a mid-range specialist, DeMar DeRozan, 3 years, $85 million. Now they gave up Thaddeus Young, Al-Farouq Aminu, a protected first rounder, and 2 seconds, which I believe is a good trade for that. I mean, you're not gonna get anything better. I think the Bulls finessed the Spurs, in my opinion.
100%. I mean, Aminu's past it. Thaddeus Young, well, his game doesn't really translate. He's undersized and he doesn't shoot well. But I think as well with the Bulls that people are underestimating is Derek Jones. I mean, I think the guy's a really, really good player. Yeah, he's streaky from the outside, but the guy's 6'7" and he can kiss the ring. I mean, that kind of athleticism in the way the game's played, I think will really help them, because I think they lacked a bit of athleticism and some size a bit last year at times, the Bulls. So I think bringing DJJ in will really help them going forward. And because he's a good guy, and he helps that 4 spot, and he can switch between the 3 and the 4 because of his athleticism as well. So another great signing for them.
Yeah, I think he provides some good value to their defense as well. So as well as Derek Jones Jr. and DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball, they've also brought in Alex Caruso for free agency, which is a good backup guard for them. They've got a nice rookie, Ayo Dosunmu. He looks to be a promising young talent for them. And they moved some players off the books. They've got some money off the books and managed to sign some good players to be role models for the younger generation, and some young stars. So now, speaking of young stars, let's contrast that to one of the oldest teams in the NBA. This is obviously the Los Angeles Lakers, who have a current average age of 31.2. And we've seen a big trade from them with the Washington Wizards. And this trade, I think, broke the internet for about a day because we didn't expect someone of this caliber, as in Russell Westbrook, to join Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron and AD. So if you guys don't know, Washington Wizards agreed to a trade for Russell Westbrook, the 2024 second round pick, their 2028 second round pick, to Los Angeles Lakers for Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, and the number 22 pick in this year's draft, which is, I think it's a fantastic trade for both teams. I mean, what's your opinion on this, Luke? And I'll give my opinion after yours.
Well, it's an interesting one because I can see both sides, and as much as I like LeBron, I mean, he's my favorite player growing up. He has been, but he's 38 this year, and his opportunity in championship window is really small. So he's brought in guys that he knows can help him win. He did it when he brought Davis in. It looked like Davis was going to Chicago for a little while last year back. I think Westbrook, if you can lock Westbrook in and you can actually get him focused, he doesn't need to average a triple-double in that team. But the thing with Westbrook is you've got to massage the ego and you've got to get him to buy in. That's the hard thing with Westbrook. But I also think Melo, a sporadic, not off the bench, but sporadic minutes can provide impact. And I also think DeAndre Jordan as well as a vet that knows how to win. So I think, yeah. And on the Wizards, I mean, they've given up Kuzma and stuff. So they've given up a lot of talent to win now. Whether that ends up working, I mean, if we're looking here in, at the end of the season and they've won the chip, the trade's worked. But I think it's a pretty big gamble. But the way the Lakers are going and how focused they are on winning with LeBron's time frame, I think it works for both teams. But I think if the Lakers don't win this season or next season and Washington improve, Washington win the trade, no doubt.
Definitely. I mean, look at the Lakers. You look at the players they've brought in, mainly older players: Trevor Ariza, Dwight Howard, Melo, Rajon Rondo. Like you said before, LeBron's just surrounding himself with players that he knows he can rely on. He knows that when it comes down to crunch time, that they have experience in big games. And looking at the Wizards as well, I mean, they're not as bad off in this trade as what people would think. So just looking at them in their off-season so far, their free agency period, I mean, they hired a new coach in Wes Unseld Jr. Getting Montrezl Harrell, he had a good last season. Don't get me wrong. You didn't really hear much from him last season.
Montrezl is really good. I've always liked Montrezl. He provides great energy. Undersized, but if every big had the heart of Montrezl, we wouldn't be having these discussions.
Exactly. I mean, last year he dropped off a little bit from the previous year. I think he averaged about 13 points and 6.2 rebounds last year. You compare that to 2019-2020 season when he won Sixth Man of the Year, and that's 18.6 points and 7.1 rebounds. But last year, you contrast that with him being on the Lakers, him not really getting as many minutes as he would like to, as what he got on the Clippers as well. So I think he's a good addition to the Wizards. I think he's going to be able to help some younger centers there. I think Thomas Bryant's still there, and Rui Hachimura. If he can give some of that heart that you were talking about to Rui Hachimura, then the Wizards are in good hands with some young talent like that. They've also brought in KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who averaged a career high in 3-point percentage last year, and that was 41%. Although he did have a little bit of a drop-off in the playoffs. He averaged about 37.9%, but still, looking at that...
You'd take that. You'd take that from your two, man, every day of the week. 38 from 3.
Exactly. I mean, it's not the worst shooting percentage in the league, and it's not the best. But at his age, it's a good percentage. To be at his career high at this point in his career, it's something unheard of, or not very common. Kyle Kuzma, I think he's just going to come in, play the same as what he did with the Lakers. He come in, be a solid option for them. But yeah, I think these two guys, Montrezl Harrell and KCP, will impact them more. So moving on to the last team that we believe had a very good transfer window / off-season. And that is the New York Knicks. So the New York Knicks managed to get rid of a couple of players through free agency, Reggie Bullock, Alfred Payton, so some of their guards, and managed to replace them with replace or upgrade them with some other guards. So they've managed to bringing Kemba Walker through a buyout from OKC. They brought in Evan Fournier from the Celtics, and they also re-signed Derrick Rose. So they sort of got that guard rotation cemented now. So that was something the New York Knicks have been lacking the last, I believe, decade or so. I mean, you look at, I think it was early 2010s, they were playing with Raymond Felton in their guards. I mean, that guy, he's not a starting guard. Not any point in his career was he a starting guard. But look at them now. They've re-signed Derrick Rose, who was played amazing for them in the playoffs last year. He was arguably the best player on their team. Kemba Walker, who didn't have his best season last year with the Celtics, but I think a change of scenery is good for him and is good for the Celtics as well. And Evan Fournier. So Evan Fournier come into the Celtics, played really well, did what we wanted him to do. So it'd be good to see how he fits into the New York Knicks system as well. Luke, what about your thoughts on the New York Knicks?
Yeah, you covered it pretty well, mate. But also with the Knicks, I think, I mean, you know, from a while, I'm not huge on Kemba. I never have been. I always think Kemba's always had the excuse throughout his career at Charlotte, and I kind of agreed with it at the time that it was we don't have enough talent around him. He's gone to the Celtics, and that, I know he was injured, but the talent on the Celtics roster that he had around him, with Smart, with Brown, with Tatum, he has to do better. So I don't know how that will go at the Knicks, but the thing is, he is from New York. So if the crowd does get behind him, it might work, and he hasn't had that real support. I mean, everyone thought he was loyal at Charlotte, then they gave him the big extension, and he dogged them and went to Boston. So with Kemba, it's a big thing. But I also think that the re-signing of Rose is massive. I think with Rose, you got to remember, yeah, he was the MVP in 2011, 2012, but you got to remember, he's a different player. And like, not just the fact that he did his knee, like, he's a lot smarter. And he does things now that he didn't do back then. And I just think he's real good, and he's real mentoring into the young guys like Barrett and stuff, because I think RJ's going to have a good year. I think there were moments last year where he really took off, and I think with a bigger role, that can really help him.
Definitely.
But I also think with the Knicks as well, that they're really going to improve this season, because I think Fournier is a really good guy that will help them on both ends. I mean, Fournier at the Olympics was unbelievable. I mean, yes, it's international, but yeah, he's French or whatever. But even Lillard, I remember Lillard saying in the Olympics after they beat USA in their first game, he even said if Fournier played like this in the Olympics, he said these guys don't play like this in the NBA. And there's a range of reasons for that go outside of the question. But the reality is Fournier will help them space the floor. He's a big body, and there's no doubt the Knicks have improved with adding Fournier and adding Kemba. Kemba I'm a bit worried about because of his attitude and the way he plays. But there's no doubt that they've improved their roster, and they should be better, because the Knicks had a good year last year. They're in one of the biggest markets in the league. There's so much potential there. So all they need to do is get it right, and they can be good for a long time.
Very much. I very much agree with everything that you've said there. So that's our winners, or some teams that have caught dubs in this free agency periods. Now let's look to some of the losers of this free agency period. Let's start off with the New Orleans Pelicans. Would you like to start off with this one, Luke?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Pels, I mean, where do you start? I mean, realistically, Zion's unsettled. I mean, realistically, they haven't got a position for him. There were times where they were running him a point guard, and to be honest, I love Zion, but he doesn't have the fitness for a point guard at all. He's overweight. He's got his knee injuries and stuff. But, I mean, I think losing Lonzo is a really big part of that. And I just think that, I mean, Zion's off contract, I'm pretty sure, next year. So unless they make a move mid-season, I can see him going, because the Pelicans are at a point and they've sacked their coach and they try, but they just can't seem to improve from where they're at. They're at a level, and I just think that they can't get past that. And I think that's I think if you go back a few years, the Pelicans, everyone will say, oh, we had Davis, we had, all these young talent. They've lost them all. They've gone. Like, I mean, it's kind of a thing. I don't know if it's people don't want to go to the New Orleans market or anything like that, but I see them getting worse. Like, I don't see how they're going to compete compared to what we've just spoke about, some of the teams, not just that have excelled, but some of the teams that haven't got worse. Just the same. The Pelicans I think that they'll really struggle big time this year.
Yeah, I just want to go back and touch on that Zion point you mentioned earlier. Zion Williamson, I mean, he's a big, aggressive body. He is overweight. He is very athletic though. And the thing that helped him throughout last season was having that connection with Lonzo Ball. Yeah, that pick and roll to the basket with Lonzo Ball. And now that Lonzo Ball's gone, and also Eric Bledsoe, so their two main point guards from last season, they brought in Thomas Satoransky and Devontae Graham. How we're sort of going to look towards seeing how Zion's game is going to develop without an elite point guard, because Devontae Graham he's a point guard, but he's really
Devontae's a volume shooter. He's not going to get the shots in that roster. Yeah, he's not going to get the shots.
Exactly. He's really more of a shooter than a point guard. He's the size of a point guard. I think he's 6'1", 6 foot.
Yeah, but, he's like 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah. But shooting, he's definitely shooting fundamentals is his game. And Thomas Satoransky, I mean, he's point guard, but he's not up to the level as what Lonzo Ball is passing wise. So I think Zion takes a big drop this year, and losing likes of Steven Adams as well, and Eric Bledsoe to the Grizzlies for Jonas Valanciunas. Yeah, Jonas he's a good center, plays well. He is solid. He's been solid for quite a few years, but I just think Jonas and Zion playing together at the same time, there's really no spacing on the floor.
There's no spacing. Exactly. And the thing with Steve Adams as well, you got to remember that Adams is a better setter than Valanciunas.
Yeah,
Adams is there a long time there at the Thunder where Steve Adams was a big part of what the Thunder were doing. I think people underestimate him, but he plays his role perfectly. Valanciunas, although he's a good player, will have a different role. I think that Zion and Adams work better together because Adams is a better rebounder, he's a better defender. Valanciunas is a better shooter, but he plays a bit more out now.
Yeah.
And I think that's really gonna hamper Zion, and that's why I think honestly Zion will leave in the next year, because I think that he'll think there and they'll put him, and I don't know where he'll go, but he'll just go to other clubs. Your career's going nowhere, and there'll be other clubs that can offer him a better opportunity with players that will help him succeed, such as the past first point guards like Lonzo that he needs to develop his game.
Yep, that's it. That's definitely what I was thinking as well. Okay, let's move on to another team that we believe took an L to the season. Probably not as bad as the New Orleans Pelicans, but around the same caliber, and that'd be the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, it's starting to turn into big man city, really. You've seen they drafted Evan Mobley at 3 this year, power forwards, center. They also free agency brought Jared Allen on extension. They brought in Lauri Markkanen. They've still got Kevin Love there. I mean, their bigs is just, it's stacked. Don't get me wrong, it's stacked, but it's stacked not of the right players to what Cleveland needs to succeed. Bringing in Ricky Rubio this year, good veteran point guy, able to pass off some knowledge to Colin Sexton, Darius Garland to help them develop their game a little bit more. I mean, we saw Colin Sexton; he's turning into a superstar. Single-handedly won the game against one of the best teams in the NBA last season, the Brooklyn Nets, with all three of their star players, Kyrie, KD, and Harden on the court. I mean, this kid, we've got to look out for him in the future to be a great player. But right now, considering their moves in this transfer window, I believe that they've taken an L, really. What about you, Luke?
Massive L. There's no doubt, and there's no sugarcoating it. The Cavs they've brought guys in that. It's also Jared Allen, great player. I loved him at the Nets, but it's overpaid. Like isn't it like something like 25 million or something, or 20 million?
Yep.
It's like 100 over 5 or something. It's a ridiculous contract. Like he's not that good. Like he's a promising young big. There's no doubt. He's probably been in the league 4 or 5 years now, but he's not that good. And Kevin Love, I mean, the guy's not fit. And also another thing I ask you is, how are Mobley and Jared Allen going to play together? They're similar players. Neither of them shoot the ball. With the way the NBA goes with the spacing, I don't see them playing well. And I think they're going to have real problems in the front court. But I love, and this is contrary, I love what they're doing in the backcourt. I think Rubio really complements Sexton and Garland, because I think the thing about Sexton is at times he's passing, he tends to turn the ball over a little bit.
Yep.
And I think if you can get the smarts of Rubio, you've got to remember, Ricky Rubio became pro at 14.
Exactly.
He's been a pro for almost 20 years. He's been a pro for about 18 years. You've got to remember that he knows how to get it done. He always plays well in FIBA and he plays well in the Olympics. If those two young guards can tap into him a little bit, they're going to be better for the long term. But the free agency and the moves they've done with Mobley, Allen and Markkanen on that ridiculous contract, they'll get worse. Their front court's worse, but their back court's better. But overall, big dip.
Definitely. Let's move on to the last category of who took an L this offseason. And we're actually talking about a player rather than a team. And this player is Dennis Schroeder in free agency. So signed to the Celtics for a 1 year, $5.9 million deal. And Luke, would you like to tell us why he's in the L category?
Well, Dennis Schroeder, great player. Also, just before I go into Whites and Nil, shout out to Danny Ainge, who was still involved a bit, and also Brad Stevens and the front office of the Celtics. Fantastic point guard. I think he's an upgrade on Kemba. And Kemba will put up more numbers, but I think Schroeder lies in better to the team. He's a better passer and a better defender. But the main reason Schroeder's an L is because look at what he gave up. I mean, he was on 5.9, but he turned out an $84 million 3-year extension to the Lakers. Man, That's big money.
That is.
And it's just something that I don't think he's trying to play the gamble. You know, a lot of guys come off contract. Realistically, this free agency's been pretty quiet for the last couple of years. Yeah, there's been stars, Lowry, Westbrook. It's happened, but realistically, he's trying to time the market for next year when everyone else comes up. But realistically, it's a punt that didn't work. Can Schroeder get back to more than $6 million a season? Absolutely, he can. But I think big time, he's taken a punt and it hasn't worked. But I think he actually makes the Celtics better, which will actually, I think the Celtics will have actually trouble to keep him at the end of the year unless they go real deep, because I think people will look at his value a lot better and a lot more and think that's a guy that we want on our team. Because Schroeder can win. He's won games numerous times, and I think he's only getting better as he gets older.
Exactly. And he brings value to the Celtics team like no other point guard could bring. I mean, replacement for Kemba Walker was just, I think Schroeder is something that we need to sort of project our team forward. Marcus Smart as well in our shooting guard position. Jaylen Brown, who could also play shooting guard, but majority of the time plays small forward. We've got Jason Tatum in the power forward position, and Robert Williams starting at center, which is a bit of a shock. But I wouldn't say we classify them as a super team as yet, but that sort of brings us into our next categories of some formations of super teams. So we've seen super teams as early as the 80s, from the Celtics and the Lakers through the 2000s to the Spurs, the Lakers as well with Kobe and Shaq, to some of the more recent teams in the modern era, like the Miami Heat with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, the Warriors who had Curry, Clay, Draymond Green, KD, and even to an extent the Lakers this year with LeBron, AD, Melo, Westbrook, Rondo. So we've seen some world-halting trades like LeBron to Miami. We've also seen teams that have flourished together like the Spurs and the Warriors. But what is really considered a super team? Is there some type of definition around this, Luke, or is it just something that people say willy-nilly that these guys are super teams because they've brought in a couple of big name players?
Yeah, great question, and it's a thing that I think the media in all sports, not just NBA, overuse the word super team and superstar all the time. But I think, in my opinion, what makes the super team, I believe there's two things. You need 3 legit superstars, and by 3 legit superstars, they can be any sport, but they need to be all stars, and they need to be guys that can contribute. And they also need to be guys that can remain healthy and stay on the floor. But another thing that I more thought of recently when this question was posed to me is the formation of super teams. What's really important is not just the other guys, say you got 3 superstars, not just the other 2 guys in the starting 5, but also the guys on the bench. Because if you look at the Miami Heat super team, or because I guess it is that they won a range of titles and they brought a lot of success to Miami. And they had guys like Mario Chalmers and Chris Anderson. And, I mean, there were some things in there, Birdman against the Pacers, that big series where Lance Stevenson blew on LeBron. He single-handedly brought Miami up because Chris Bosh isn't a rim protector. Birdman is. Mario Chalmers played his role perfectly in that season, defensive point guard. allowed it on LeBron. And I'll go back to the more recent super team of the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, with KD, with Draymond when he was an All-Star. And I look at that team and I'm thinking you had guys like David West and you had guys like Andrew Bogut, guys that don't need the ball in their hands and don't need to play big minutes. But I think their contribution, and especially with Bogut, I mean, his passing and screen setting was some of the best in the league. And that's how the super teams elevate. It's not just the stars, but it's the guys you bring around them, the culture guys that lock in culturally and on the floor that do their role perfectly, that allows teams to succeed and get to that super team tier.
Definitely. I mean, I 100% agree with everything that you've said. The super teams, they need some 3-star players, 3 consistent players, and they also need their bench around them. They need that sort of camaraderie between the team to propel themselves to a higher status. Quick round fire question. Who would you consider super teams this season? Just off the top of your head, go. 3 teams. Who would you consider?
Lakers.
Yep.
Lakers for sure. Nets.
Yep.
Third one, I'm not really sure. Do you have anything on that?
I'd consider Miami Heat a super team with the addition of Kyle Lowry now. I know I
don't think Lowry's in the superstar category though. I don't agree as a Heat fan because he's older. He's 35 now. He's a good player, but realistically, there's better point guards that are younger. I don't think he's a good player, but I wouldn't say the Heat are a super team, not at all.
Okay. I just think his experience that he brings to the team, partnered with the talent that you have now, sort of gels that team together and propels them further to what they were last season. So, in my opinion, I think that I wouldn't really say that they're a top tier super team, but I think they're on the fringe of being a super team. But anyway, we digress. Let's move on to the last category of tonight. A hot take from each of us. So, Luke, would you like to start off with your hot take? Because I know you have some opinions on my hot take that might take a while.
Yeah, so my hot take is a simple one, but one that I'm quite confident in. I think it's Golden State Warriors will be in the top 4 in the Western Conference. I think Steph, now being fully fit, coming from his injuries, I mean, the guys handedly almost got them to the playoffs. I think James Wiseman's going to improve. I think Clay coming back. I think Clay's going to come back. And I think with Clay, it's not just does he space the floor, but I think people underestimate how good a defender he actually is. Because if you look at him when he come out of college to him now, it's a completely different player. And I think Wiggins and Draymond in that little role, and they've also got Jordan Poole. They've got guys that can win. And I think that combined, they were really lacking the second and third options for Curry scoring the ball. They really didn't have it because Wiggins isn't a volume scorer. He was in college and he was in high school, but he realistically is a flop for a number 1 pick. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that the Warriors, if Clay and everyone else stays fit, they'll have no problems in getting to the top 4 in the West. And they could even make a deep run into the playoffs. Who says they won't? I don't think they'll beat the Lakers, but there's guys that have won chips there. They can do it. They've got the experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think they'll make top 5. I don't know about top 4, but I reckon they'll be up there in the top 5 best teams. I think Clay provides that second option and that experience to gel the team together. James Wiseman, like you said, not really a volume shooter. Bit of a disappointment as a second overall pick, but sure. I think this season he's gonna have a bit of a jump with Clay there, with some other guys there to sort of project him forward. I think they've got Toscano Anderson as well. He's going to bring some energy as well. I think his energy can really push the team and push James Wiseman to sort of further himself and better himself. And yeah, I think they might get to the conference semifinals, the Western Conference semifinals, but I don't think they go as far as what they've done previous years. But I reckon they'll have a good run this year.
Yeah. For sure. They'll definitely improve. They've got the pieces to do it.
Exactly. And now, the main attraction of tonight, Josh Giddy. Not the player. I don't think he is going to be the player people make him out to be. And here's why. He was first round 6th pick in the 2021 draft this year. I watched him play when he was playing in Adelaide against the Illawarra Hawks. Matched up against Justin Simon, who won Defensive Player of the Year. Did not score a point against Justin Simon, the Defensive Player of the Year in the NBL. Although in the NBA, Justin Simon has had stints in the NBA, but there are teams in the NBA that have 2, 3, 4 people even that are up to the caliber of Justin Simon, as well as this, him not having a explosive first step or sort of a shifty quickness as a typical point guards have. I mean, he's 6'8" point guard with a great vision, as I've been told, to negate my case, but he doesn't really have that speed. He's a streaky shooter, which he needs to improve a little bit more because he can't afford to have defenders sag off him on the 3-point line. Like he's gonna need to hit shots like that. And at the moment, I don't think he's really at it. And to add on top of that, he's 6'7" wingspan. It really gives him a disadvantage on the defensive end. It really limits him physically of what he's able to do. His lateral quickness, his athleticism, it's not really up there. So I don't really see the value in him getting picked that high, but that's my opinion. Please, Australians, don't come back at me. Please, I know this is going to be a controversial topic, but that's my opinion. But if you guys have any views on it before Luke talks, please stop the video and write down in the comments what you think. But Luke, please, I would like to hear your opinion on this as well.
Come on, mate. You're going to get the whole Australian basketball community against you. Giddy's the golden child. But no, really to the point. I think what Matt says, a part of it I do agree with. Giddy, he's not the most athletic guy, and his release is really slow. It's really jerky. I saw him play big time, just not here in the NBL. He carried Adelaide. Adelaide had their big man, Isaac Humphries, who played a bit for Atlanta a few years ago in the NBA. He had a foot injury, so he didn't play that much. So there was a lot of responsibility was on Josh Giddy, but I don't think maybe Josh Giddy's a number 6 pick. I think that was a bit high, but I think Matt is being a bit harsh on Giddy, and I think this is why. I mean, realistically, the way the game's going, it's just you can get fast, athletic guys on the wing. I don't think necessarily all teams need a really athletic point guard, because I think a lot of teams actually don't have a lot of more. I mean, look at the older point guards like the Kyle Lowrys and the Chris Paul. I mean, they're very productive through their IQ and their smarts. And the thing about Giddy is he's 6'8", 6'9", with incredible vision. He can hit guys. He's got great ball handling. For Giddy to take his game to the next level and really solidify that high lottery pick, he's got to improve his shooting, he's got to improve his defense, and he's got to improve his athleticism. But I've got no doubt he can do that because he has the skills, and he's a coachable guy that people like, and he's always willing to learn. So I do think Matt said a lot of things that are relevant to Josh Giddy, but I also think he's being a bit harsh because Giddy's vision and the reason why he's such a good player and so young, because you got to remember he's only 18, he's never played college, and he'll be a good player in the NBA. So whether he's a 6 pick, time will tell, but he's a very, very good young player.
Exactly. And I'm not saying he isn't a good young player, but at this point in time, like we said, I don't think he was worth picking at 6. But I'm afraid we'll have to see what's going to happen with Josh Giddy in his career, and who knows, maybe I might get proven wrong. But I guess we'll find out as the year progresses and as his career progresses. But I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. So thank you all for tuning in to Secure the Bag's first NBA OT. Make sure you keep a lookout for the next NBA OT, where we'll preview the upcoming season, rate each team, and share our opinions on who we think will finish in the top 8. So if you enjoyed this video and the content we create on Secure the Bag, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And also feel free to voice your opinions in the comments. We'll be reading all of them. And that's game.